Hello and welcome to another episode of Latitude. As the recent attacks on the Pathankot Air Base and the Indian mission in Kabul have shown, Pakistan continues to use terror as an extension of its policy, and the Pakistan Army's deep links with terror machinery will continue to haunt India in the years to come.
Even before the euphoria about Mr. Modi's visit to Lahore had settled, policymakers in New Delhi received a harsh reminder from across the border that Mr. Sharif is not quite in control of what would be the future course of Indo-Pak ties. A dramatic New Year's Day attack by Jaish-e-Mohammed operatives on the sensitive Pathankot Air Base was designed to put the clock back on any peace initiatives that were being planned by diplomats in India and Pakistan. Located in Punjab, south of Jammu and Kashmir, Pathankot, like Jammu, is easy to reach from the Indo-Pak border. The attack and efforts to neutralize the terrorists went on for several days, and based on telltale signs such as the military-like tactics adopted by these terrorists, the markings on their ammunition and medicine packs, and above all, phone calls to their handlers in Pakistan, has led all seasoned observers to point fingers at the Pakistan Army and the ISI for planning and executing this attack. And even as India's establishment was grappling with the implications of the attack on Pathankot, India's mission in Mazar-e-Sharif was attacked by gunmen, leading also to another fierce battle in Afghanistan. With the Lashkar-e-Taiba having attacked Indian missions in Kabul and Herat in the past, Pakistan's hand in this attack too could be ruled out. Just like the security discourse with India, the Pakistani military establishment considers Afghanistan part of its turf and bitterly resents the popularity India enjoys there. More so following the several projects implemented by India, like the Afghan Parliament. In this report on Indo-Pak strategies in Afghanistan, the RAND Corporation, a US think tank, had said, Pakistan's goals for Afghanistan are mainly, although not exclusively, India-centric and focus primarily on undermining Delhi's influence in Afghanistan. If Nawaz Sharif is unable to deliver on India's demands for a prompt response against those behind the Pathankot attack, the challenge for New Delhi would be twofold. The first being whom India should engage with, if at all, in Pakistan, and the other, how to get the Pakistani deep state to abandon terror as a tool of its policies against India.
And to look at the implications of how Pakistan's obsessive use of terror as an extension of its foreign policy, we have two very well-informed guests who've been looking at Pakistan and writing about it for years. We have Mr. Rane Banerjee with us, who's been a former Special Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat and now is associated with two think tanks, the PCS and the Delhi Policy Group, and has written extensively and has interest in the Pakistan Army and Islamic terror and political Islam. And we have General Afsir Karim, who to those who follow security issues doesn't need an introduction. General Karim has been the author of many works on Kashmir and terrorism, as well as the editor for several years now of the Aakrosh magazine, and earlier editor of the Indian Defence Review. And General Karim sir, I'll start with you to say you had rather prophetically or with tremendous foresight put together this paper on Optopac, in which you had spelt out quite exactly how the whole Pakistani-sponsored terror agenda will unfold in J&K. It's 2.5 decades or 3 decades since then. What do you see now Pakistan doing, especially so as they want to expand their footprint beyond J&K, Pathankot being the latest example?
You see, they have gone beyond J&K now because they have felt the J&K operations have failed. By itself, they cannot continue doing anything. So they want to include Punjab, which they had been once had experience earlier, and also Afghanistan along with it. So there's an area of strategic area where the confrontation they want to increase with India, and they are doing that. And this attacks in Punjab is a part of that thing, and also in Afghanistan. But that's not the only issue. They want to create a problem in India's population within itself, between the Muslims and Hindus and Christians and others. And they have got these cells also working on those issues. So there's a large area where they want to confront India, and they hope that India will be sort of, if not, they cannot do much to India, but they can make India suffer or bleed. How far they have succeeded is the question where we have to really think about.
Very interesting. I mean, that's really the thesis amongst most people who look at Pakistan. I think, Mr. Banerjee, sir, you'd also probably agree with that. But I want to ask two pointed questions. Pakistan has been using not just physical terror and jihadi groups to attack India, Indians and Indian installations, but they've been resorting for some years to economic terrorism. More importantly, the use of fake currency, as well as narco terror, and these terrorists that came in Pathankot again followed the drug terror route, and Pakistan is clearly a launch pad for a lot of the drug terror that comes from Afghanistan, and therefore the linkages of Pakistan's military and the terror nexus with Afghanistan, Pakistan and India. So do you feel that that effort on the part of Pakistan has been countered effectively by India, or what do you foresee? I mean, does the future look any more bleak?
The future doesn't look very bright, because counterfeit currency usage through various channels has been assiduously pursued by Pakistan, though I don't think it is necessarily linked to every aspect of the use of non-state actors by them to spread terror across India, particularly the use of Lashkar and the Jaish. These are separate strings to their bow. The counterfeit currency mechanisms are more linked to their sponsoring of even Sikh elements even now, although the Khalistan movement is more or less died down. But there is a new nexus using itinerant Sikhs traveling to places like Indonesia, Bangkok, and then bringing in counterfeit currency to be eventually sent into India.
General Karim sir, there are a whole lot of optimists in India who continue to believe that any prime ministerial meeting between India and Pakistan will put an end to 68 years of Pakistan-sponsored hostility against India or sponsored acts of terror, as most recently Mr. Modi's visit to Pakistan. But clearly, some people believe that you need to be talking to Pakistan at one stage, but also be very, very wary of the Pakistan army, which sees any serious movement on the political entities of Pakistan vis-a-vis India is clearly an encroachment onto their space. How do you think the Pakistan army will react if the dialogue and détente purpose and agenda between India and Pakistan will move speedily forward?
You see, Pakistan army is very clear on one subject, that they are not going to compromise on Kashmir, and that means confrontation with India throughout. There are various means of doing it which are apparent, but also there are two policies in Pakistan. One is a civil policy where they would like to talk and say so on and so forth. The other is military, which is the dominant policy as far as India is concerned and security is concerned. So in India, we don't have that kind of a policy which can confront their military policy. That policy is not evolved with peace or war anyway. So these are the things we have to ponder about and decide. That to decide, we can keep on talking to Pakistan, but it doesn't mean that we won't take the other action which is required to be taken.
While the attack was taking place in Pathankot, suddenly there was an attack on an Indian consulate in Mazar-e-Sharif. Wasn't the first attack on an Indian mission there, as you know only too well. Kabul, Jalalabad, Herat have faced it in the past. It is said that as India continues to expand its footprint in Afghanistan, not only it increases the goodwill that it enjoys in Afghanistan, but it obviously makes Pakistan very insecure. Because Pakistan's agenda, by a Rand Corporation report, is very clearly in contrast to the Indian agenda, which is mainly, though not exclusively, India-centric and focuses primarily on undermining Delhi's influence in Afghanistan. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Pakistan has always been uncomfortable with a predominant Indian influence in Afghanistan, and one of their main planks of foreign policy, particularly the one pursued by the army, has been to reduce this to a secondary nature. So in the transition that happened last year when Ashraf Ghani succeeded President Karzai, the Pakistanis were very hopeful that they would progress quickly to achieve this objective, and to a certain extent they did. But they have really been overtaken by the post-Mullah Omar splits which have fractured the Afghan Taliban. And today they are in a very difficult position because they have a certain compulsion to bring the Taliban to the reconciliation talks, and the pressure on them is from the Americans and also to a little extent from the Chinese. And though they have committed to that, they are unable to really bring a particular brand of Afghan Taliban leadership for peace talks. So they are having a dilemma in this regard.
Right. Clearly, Pakistan and India are headed for greater confrontation in Afghanistan, apart from Pak-sponsored terror groups that continue to hit us on Indian soil. We'll be back after a break to look at how India could deal with Pakistan and its obsession with continuing to challenge India. Welcome back. We still have both our guests with us looking at Pakistan's terror agenda. General Karim sir, Pakistan is widely disliked in Afghanistan and is regarded by the Afghans as source of all their troubles. So how do you think Pakistan can win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people while trying to win the territory there through the Taliban, which was clearly created in the initial stages by Zulfikar Bhutto and then more so by Benazir Bhutto and General Nasrullah Babar, and Zia, of course, then uses effectively for his own ends?
You see, Pakistanis are not looking for hearts and minds. Pakistani army is generally, and their policies are destructive. They'll create problems for them through Taliban or some other groups from their own territory and continue to dominate from that point of view. They are not interested in their welfare, they're not interested in their development, and they don't care whether Afghans like them or not. But having said this, they are very, very sort of bothered that Indian influence, which is increasing, will eventually may result in a Pashtunist movement of a kind, where Pakistan loses all grip of Afghanistan.
Mr. Banerjee, sir, it is said that India's eyes and ears are provided by our intelligence agencies far beyond our border. In Afghanistan, quite specifically, Pakistan's allegations apart, we do have intelligence operatives operating there who do give us a strategic assessment, which is important for our long-term goals. Considering that our consulates are repeatedly being attacked by terror groups that come from Pakistan, what would be the immediate set of steps that you will recommend for making things more sort of defensive for us?
We have already deployed the ITBP, small contingents albeit.
And they've done pretty well.
Yes,
I mean, they evaded,
yes.
they foresaw the attack in Herat and
Yes.
they responded very well.
Yes.
Even in Mazar-e-Sharif,
Absolutely.
they really got into the act.
Yes.
So yes.
Apart from that, we have to depend on the local authorities, the Afghan National Army and their special forces, who have so far responded with great alacrity to our requests and to our perceptions about the security threats, and also the intelligence that has been shared with them timely. So both in Jalalabad and in several occasions in the past in Kandahar and Kabul, very major damage or incidents could be averted or the damage contained because of timely intelligence sharing and action taken by the Afghan authorities.
General Karim sir, it is said by many analysts that even if you solve the Kashmir issue, which I feel in our lifetimes I don't think it will get solved, but even if you solve the Kashmir issue, Pakistan will not abandon terrorism. They are wedded to jihad in perpetuity. Is that true?
Yeah, there are two aspects. Firstly, they consider India an existential threat for them, and they want to reduce India to their size somehow or the other, which they are unable to do. One method is through the jihadi groups, other is through this terrorism by the army and the other groups. So this will continue, but they are in a hopeless situation because they have not damaged India to any degree they wanted to. In fact, India has gone ahead economically in every way, and they are now thinking of some other methods. Now we'll have to discover these methods, find out how they're going to really act in future.
If I may comment
Yes,
on the
yes,
same
please.
question.
I was going to ask you, sir.
Yes, they have a problem now because, I mean, they have been distinguishing between good terrorists and bad terrorists, good for those who are used against India, but bad for those who have turned inwards. And the line is gradually blurring between these two. And also in civil society, there is a great deal of introspection in Pakistan, which is putting pressure on the policymakers in the Pakistani military establishment to question the soundness of this policy for any length of time in the future. So that is why you find the army chief, Rahil Sharif, in his New Year message, he has talked about, this year being the last year for terrorism in Pakistan. Also yesterday in the Corps Commanders Conference, he mentioned that this would be zero tolerance for terrorism. Of course, they will make a differentiation about, instruments like Lashkar-e-Jaish for a while. But there will be constraints or limitations because in international relations terms, they are already being regarded as a pariah, and to avoid this isolation, also there will be some pressure on them to change these policies.
There is also a view that Pakistan has initiated, the military in particular, a new strategic approach to the use of terror and subconventional warfare and laced it with the possibility of nuclear escalation. So you have terror attacks on India, India responds militarily, and then you threaten that we might use tactical nuclear weapons against India. So therefore, they have created this fear psychosis, not just amongst many policymakers in Delhi, especially those with not enough military knowledge on how Pakistan operates, but even particularly in Washington. What's your views?
You see, that is what Pakistan is being propagating, what you are saying. But this fear psychosis is our problem. We are so reluctant. We must take action and see Pakistan can really do nothing. They have tried everything. And beyond that, they don't have the capability. As far as nuclear is concerned, it's absurd to think that Pakistan is going to use nuclear weapons because if we attack some terrorist group there or something else. So I think India has to really rethink its policy and become much bolder than the way it is behaving is as a smaller power than Pakistan.
I agree, sir. In fact, my personal view is that, even in the event of a land confrontation with Pakistan, the most likely area where confrontation will take place is in Punjab. And if Pakistan in sheer panic uses tactical nuclear weapons to defend its vital cities in Punjab, the maximum fallout will be on Pakistan's civil population in Punjab. And since most of their generals and the army comes from Punjab, I don't think they're going to be in a suicidal mood to knock off their own relatives. But I'll go to another question to you, sir. From an intelligence perspective, what is your view about how much information and how accurate we have in terms of all the terror accessories and camps that Pakistan has on the Indo-Pak border? And if we do decide to neutralize them through conventional, sub-conventional or proxy means, can we actually resort to that? Do you have the capabilities?
You see, the location of camps keeps shifting.
I know that.
Even when we have GPS locations, the possibility of retaliatory action which would be precisely able to hit such camps may be slightly open to doubt. There are other proxy methods which could be utilized in a deniable manner, and we have to hone up our capabilities in this regard and start using them sooner than later.
Thank you. Lots of interesting points that have come up, but if I was to sum up and put my finger on 3 or 4 points, I would say that it's very clear, talks or no talks, the Pakistan army will not relent on Kashmir, and the Pakistan army will continue to use their various terror groups to extend their policy agenda as they've done in the past. Secondly, Pakistan is uninterested in any goodwill that it might pick up in Afghanistan. All that they are interested in is to challenge India's stature and its gains in Afghanistan. And finally, as terror groups continue to operate with impunity in Afghanistan, they are very clearly an extension of the Pakistan army. They are Pakistan army's irregulars in civilian clothes, and India must evolve an effective strategy, though openly and by proxy, to deal with them and if need be, maintain deniability. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us on this show. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, goodbye.